Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? Hope you're doing well on this day 2. We have a great conversation today, which is on navigating the e-commerce storm and the power of AI-driven co-pilot. This is going to be with our speaker, Arne Jeroschewski, founder and CEO of Parcel Perform. In short, are you ready to take control of your e-commerce operations? Imagine a world where you can anticipate and proactively address disruptions to safeguard the customer experience, where you can set the highest aspirations and excel at every stage of an order's life cycle, and pair that with turnkey business intelligence uniquely tailored to your business. Let's give a round of applause to Arne Jeroschewski, and let's get ourselves started here.
Thank you, Gary. Welcome, everyone. I really appreciate the opportunity to address you today on the challenge of e-commerce. Maybe I start a little bit about who we are as Parcel Perform. We were founded about 8 years ago, and we have since then built an end-to-end delivery experience platform that covers the whole e-commerce experience. So we have integrated 1,100 carriers. We operate with some of the largest, most successful e-commerce operations on the planet. And what we do on a product level is we cover the whole journey for e-commerce customers, from the checkout to the post-purchase experience, to the returns. We build the supporting logistics infrastructure, and we have developed a co-pilot that allows you as merchants to stay on top of all these elements working together to deliver value for your customers. So with this, I think we're in a unique opportunity to kind of understand what's going on in the world of e-commerce, how customers perceive it, and also how to create value for merchants. And I think that's where we see, and I want to share a little bit more kind of the value creation opportunities that come around AI, around post-purchase, and kind of how merchants nowadays need to prepare for that.
So why don't I ask you real quick, Arne, why don't you tell us a bit about the post-purchase process today, and more importantly, what's missing?
So if we think about post-purchase, I think a lot of that is around what we call the happy path. So, and everyone probably has spent a lot of time optimizing the happy path, how a normal customer goes through the journey for the delivery experience. I think we put an example for one of our customers, Puma, what merchants normally do. They have like a tracking page where you have all the information, you see the shipment, how it progresses through the journey. They send a number of notifications, you ask them for a kind of rating in the end. So, and I think we spent a lot of time, particularly over the last 10 years, to really make this as kind of optimized as possible. Yeah, we've done A/B testing. I think most of the merchants have done A/B testing, trying this or that. And I think this has kind of created a lot of value for customers. But nevertheless, I think what we have seen is after you have done this, that's not enough. Because I think what we are seeing that there's 20% of your shipments that are not on the happy path, where customers have a lot of complexities. And if you're an operations team, this is where 80% of your headache comes from. So if you look at what your customer experience, you're getting these 1-star ratings, you get bad reviews on Trustpilot, you get all these call-ins, complaints, Wismo calls, and the issues on brand reputation. That's not because of the 80% that have a great experience. It's about the 20% that don't. And I think that's where, when we think about post-purchase, this is where we put our attention and our emphasis. And in order to address that, I think what we have done is we have identified 25 delivery pitfalls that customers can run into on the delivery path. I think we put out a few of those. For example, it wasn't delivered to the customer, was delivered to a reception lobby, the neighbor. God knows there was a kind of a delay. There's a kind of failed attempt. Obviously, it's a very regular one. So there's a lot of these delivery exceptions that one needs to deal with. And I think the more gracefully you deal with it, the better the customer experience, and the more you can address those 80% headaches that I talked about. So how do you do that? I think there's two important components. The first one is better information. You basically inform your customers right there and then when it happens, and tell them how to deal with it. And second one, starting off with clearer expectations. So I want to go into like those two areas to give you a bit of a sense on how to really address that and make sure that those 25 delivery pitfalls don't turn into a headache for you guys. On the kind of better information side. So there's a lot of things happening, particularly if you work with multiple carriers and service providers. So every carrier and service provider provides customers with different information, kind of communicates that at different points of time and has different kind of workflows. So I think that's what we have realized is we need to have different experiences depending on which carrier you choose, and be very, very specific. And that's the second part on what all of these things mean for the customer. Not just saying, okay, your shipment is misrouted, damaged, or kind of there was a failed attempt, but also focusing on what it actually means for the customer. What does the customer have to do or not to do? And I think that's where a lot of these kind of solutions that focus only on the happy path are failing. So you just kind of push the information to the customer without clear guidance on what it means for them. So if we are solving this for our customers, what that actually means is per kind of market and carrier, you should look at between 15 to 20 different notifications that can be triggered in order to optimize the brand experience. So I think you can test that for your own setup, how many you have. If you have less than that, there's probably a value creation potential where you can say, hey, with more granular notifications based on the carriers and what you're building, you can create value. You reduce the kind of the need of the customer to reach out to your customer service. You can make it a better experience, and you also kind of ensure that customers are coming back. So the other thing that is going on with most of the merchants is that the carriers actually communicate to the end customers. Because you basically allow them to do so, they send them the email, so the carrier send a lot of notifications. So the challenge is they don't necessarily have the same incentive on kind of managing this relationship. So you can't really make sure that you deliver a great experience if somebody else communicates in parallel to what you're kind of communicating, and maybe even a kind of inconsistent. I think the biggest inconsistency we are seeing is expected delivery dates. You promise something at checkout, then you hand it over to FedEx, and they send something entirely different. FedEx as an example for any carrier you might be working with. So aligning those expectations and making sure that whatever communication happens to the customer is fully kind of in your brand experience and also consistent for the customer, I think adds a lot of value. And that also means kind of making sure that the carrier is in lockstep with the way you want to communicate. So this is about the better information. The second part, that's another great example. Is I think we have done the analysis kind of for some of the carriers here in the US market is in about 60% of the parcels where the carrier says, okay, we have a delay in the shipment. Actually, the shipment arrives on time. So you basically tell the customer, hey, it's delayed. You can basically obviously provoke negative emotions or that again, I've been waiting for this. So you create a lot of like uproar for nothing because the shipment is actually on time. So I think that's where I think there's a lot of attention we need to put on the details, particularly on what the carriers communicate and when, and whether you as a merchant want that to be part of your delivery experience. So, but this is about better experience. Let's look into setting clearer delivery expectations. So, obviously, all of us kind of have kind of a flow on expected delivery dates probably on their page. The product page, the cart overview, checkout page, and then the delivery updates, kind of making sure that this is a kind of a clear expectation that is set. However, what we're seeing, what happens most of the times is, hey, let's keep it simple and bulletproof. So we put something, hey, 4 to 7 business days. I'm sure you have a variation of that kind of seen, at least experience as a consumer. Technically, it checks all the boxes. Yes, we have delivered, we have an expected delivery date. Check the box. Yeah, we have probably delivered in that time frame. But is that really maximizing the value for you as a merchant? Because at that point of time, you really the customer needs to take a decision on whether to buy your product. And if you're just playing it safe, maybe you're not getting the best value out of this. So what we are advocating, and we have kind of tested this out with many A/B tests that we've run, we have defined 7 best practices how you get this right at the checkout. And at this level, I don't necessarily argue the date that you promise, but more how you promise it. So the first thing is you have to promise an actual date. Don't tell them in 5 days or whatever. You tell them kind of one date, next Tuesday. You tell them the weekday, because customers can better adjust to a weekday rather than you give them the date. Yeah. So if you tell them, hey, the 19th of October, how many can figure this out, which day that is? So you need to tell them the weekday. You ideally tell them how many days are remaining, because everyone has a mental reference. Okay, 3 days from now. I get that. They don't have to think much. They don't have to calculate in their head. The easier you make it, the better. You have to obviously emphasize. It shouldn't be like anywhere in the fine print. You have to ideally say it's an estimate and it's not a promise, because if you kind of position it as a promise, then you get basically backslash later on. And from a conversion point of view, it doesn't make a difference. So whether you say it's a promise, a delivery promise, or a delivery estimate has the same conversion, but it has a very big difference on the kind of later on customer service inquiries, because if you get it wrong, which happens kind of necessarily when running operations, if you position it as an estimate, you have a lot more understanding customers than if you position it as a promise. So then putting some urgency reminder, because expected delivery dates have an expiry date, which you can also use for your own kind of conversion maximization. You force customers to take impulse decisions. I think that that's something which a lot of customers appreciate and will also follow. And kind of the other thing is you need to kind of give them the sense that you have really, really thought that through. So that's why you put the location. I think we can usually do some IP location kind of monitoring and then basically figure out where the customer is located. That has 2 effects. One effect is in case they're somewhere else or they order somewhere else, you can change it. The second effect is kind of they know you thought it through. Because here, for this one, okay, I am in Austin. They really gave me this prediction for Austin. So it has a very, very positive psychological effect. So if you get this right, you get the maximum out of that expected delivery kind of notification that you do at the checkout, and you basically kind of optimize conversions for your customers. So with that, you set the best possible expectations in order for you guys to create value. But here again, one thing we need to all be worried about is, again, the carrier EDDs. And I think I mentioned this earlier. They're throwing in a lot of EDDs as well. They come later, but they're probably not aligned with what you have been saying. So what we have seen is that with the carrier EDDs, every carrier is different. So if you work with 2 different carriers, you're probably facing 2 very different logics of EDDs. Some are very aggressive, some are very kind of buffering it up. But on average, we're seeing about 15% of the shipments being late. So the interesting part is, during the delivery journey, about 45% of the carriers actually change the EDDs. So they change it kind of in multiple directions. Yeah? So sometimes go earlier, sometimes go later, sometimes go earlier and then later again. So there's a lot of movement there. So if you have 50% of the shipments are late beforehand, then you communicate with 45% of the customers. What we're seeing that the actual accuracy of those EDDs only improves by 3%. That's another kind of way to think about it. Hey, you communicate with 45% of your customers about an EDD change, but you only improve the accuracy by 3 percentage points. So that's a bit of a waste of kind of customer attention and might be problematic for their perception of the service. So I think that's where you as a merchant have a lot better incentives to really take over this experience, making sure that it follows through from the checkout up to the delivery, and you control the entire end-to-end communication with your end customers. So if you take all of this together, I think, and really go beyond kind of the happy path that kind of a lot of people have focused on in the post-purchase experience, I think there's a lot of potential on really boosting conversions and upselling potential that you have during your checkout flow. There's a lot of opportunity to really reduce Wismo's outreach to your customer service, compensations you need to pay because they might be upset. Because this is also, whenever they reach out to your customer service, they're probably upset in the first place. So this is not a customer that is necessarily like in a good place at that time. But if you have a reduction in Wismo, you also know that the customer is having a better experience and you're building your brand. And that's ultimately what drives customer satisfaction, repurchase ratios, and many more things. So we've done this journey with many brands, and to give you one example of numbers that we have achieved with our position. So we took over one of the customers from one of our competitors that focused only on the happy path, and we were able to increase the notification coverage of all these delivery pitfalls by notification coverage 50%, pitfall coverage by 62% by being more granular in the way we communicate with our customers. With that communication coverage, you can also create more exposure points to customers. So instead of the carrier sending all these notifications, you send those notifications. You add your upselling potential. You add your campaigns to that communication. So you have a lot of upselling upside out of that. And the other one is you reduce customer service interactions. If you tell the customers exactly what this means to them, what this means on the expected delivery date of the parcel, without those conflicting messages from your customers, you reduce the need for them reaching out for this. And that gives you a very nice ROI on whatever you have to spend on the solution you have to implement. So I think that's why when we look at post-purchase, one of the things is don't just look at the happy path, look beyond. Look really expectation setting, really assess what the carrier is doing. Because the carrier might be delivering a great service, but it's your responsibility to manage the customer interaction, the customer experience, so don't let them get in the way of that. So that's how we are thinking, what is still a potential for post-purchase in this space.
Well, let me ask you, it's very, very interesting. Why don't you tell us a bit more about Copilot and how you manage more efficiently with the use of AI and the next-gen technologies?
So when we started to building Parcel Perform as a business, I think we looked at the end-to-end process for what we call delivery experience. So it starts as a checkout. We talked about the expected delivery dates, the post-purchase experience. You're working with dozens of different carriers across multiple markets. There's a return part I haven't covered. There's a lot of complexity, and I think setting this up once is one part of the effort. But managing this day to day is a very, very different challenge because you have so many moving parts. You have thousands, millions of orders that you are in charge of, and it's very, very difficult, particularly as a operations or logistics-centric team, to stay on top of that. So that's why I think we have built and we're promoting to use the power of data and AI and give anyone who's operating here a co-pilot functionality. So that's obviously a big buzzword, and I apologize for that. But I think I want to share a little bit more what that actually means for us. So there's, I think, 3 steps that we're taking to really solve this and make your life easier to stay on top of a complex delivery operation for a big brand, a big merchant. So the first one is setting the right aspiration. So you can't optimize and you can't monitor if you haven't no understanding of where you want to be as a brand and as a service. So we call it performance aspiration. Yeah. So previously people called it, this is SLA. We didn't like that because SLA means a minimum thing, the minimum hurdle you need to cross to be okay. But you as a merchant, you're running a business. You don't just want to be okay. You want to be great. And I think that's where we want to set the right aspiration. So that's the first step. The second one is we need to take over the entire monitoring around this. Don't want to look at all these different dashboards day in, day out, because first of all, it's no fun. Secondly, is you probably get lazy after some time. And the third one is you're probably not going to be granular kind of enough in order to really figure out the details. So I think taking that over, and I think we're using power of AI for that. And then, of course, kind of having the ability and all data in one place to do the right kind of analysis and take the right decision as a consequence. So let me go into this in a little bit more detail. The first one on setting aspirations. So what we are basically doing is we're working with our customers to look at every order and every process step to really define what is good and what is great. So we want to go beyond the SLAs. We want to really set aspirations. So obviously, there needs to be a minimum standard. But what we can say, hey, okay, the turnaround time for warehouses is, okay, the minimum standard is 48 hours, but we aspire to do this within 24 hours. So we set those bars, and we can calculate that particular step for every order to make sure that you have the visibility. But however, if you set those, and that's the second point, you can basically live in your own bubble where you can say, oh yeah, this is our aspirations. The customer has to deal with it. I think that's where we educate and look at benchmarks for your competitors maybe. To say, hey, okay, how fast are they turning stuff around? How fast are they delivering to this regional market? Yeah, if they deliver to New York, maybe in a better sense, okay, a kind of next day delivery kind of a success rate of 80% versus yours 60%, that's probably a different aspirations to set. So for us, setting aspirations is always not just an internal exercise, but also looking out in the market. And then basically, ideally trying to cover all the processes that you're running, all the different contributing factors, so you can basically make sure that you cover everything that matters to the customer. And with this, when we've done this exercise, that means per order, we're probably between 10 and 15 different metrics or kind of SLAs that we calculate where we say, hey, this order was kind of either in breach, kind of meeting the minimum standards, or it's actually outstanding. So if we go with that and have set these aspirations, I think the next one is really going into really monitoring kind of this on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of companies kind of have tons of Excel sheets that they're throwing around, basically making sure that we stay on top. They get data from carriers, multiple sources, their OMS system, basically look at this, probably not as frequently as they should, and probably not as granular as they should. And probably if you look at 15 reports, one after the other, there's a good chance that you miss stuff because you're just getting kind of blind by it. So we automated that entire process, kind of basically running those real-time report and alerting everyone for the deviations and thresholds that we set. And we make sure that those updates get to you when you need it. When you come into the office every morning, you know what happened yesterday and what you need to work on. So that allows our kind of customers and the operations team to focus on get stuff done. So then instead of spending 90% of your time trying to figure out the data and looking at reports and 10% kind of acting on it, we turn this around. You spend 10% of your time kind of looking at reports and spend 90% of your time getting shit done, making an impact on your operations. So what does it mean with the power of AI? So I think that there are three important steps around this alerting. First of all, if you have to painstakingly set up all your alerts yourself, that takes forever and kind of you lose interest pretty quickly. So that's why we are using AI. Basically, based on your operations, we generate alerts. And I think I'm not talking like 10 or 20, I'm talking thousands of alerts because you also want to be granular. You want to look at the specific regional markets, yeah, how you deliver to New York, to Milwaukee, to Kansas City, to LA. So all of that kind of matters to you because a customer sat there, but you wouldn't normally do that because you couldn't be bothered. It's too much work. But I think with this tooling, you can, and you should be as granular as possible. The second step is if you're that granular, you have thousands of alerts, there's a good chance that a few dozens/hundreds go off every day. So you need to figure out what really matters. For every day you come into the office, you need to figure out, okay, this is the biggest thing I can work on and fix. So that's where we're using GenAI and these capabilities to summarize that for you. Hey, these 100 alerts kind of went off yesterday. but understanding from the kind of how many shipments are affected, how many customers are affected, how severe is the deviation, we recommend you look into these 10 first. So, and that's the one kind of very powerful way of staying on top of everything. Obviously, if you have slow day, then you go further down the list. But I think we prioritize that for you.
Let me ask you a question real quick on that.
Sure.
So, company to company, though, those prioritizations may be different, right? So, how do you sort of manage that part where AI accommodates those prioritizations for company A versus company B? Which alerts are more or less important to them?
So that's for us kind of because obviously we don't know when we set this up. So what we have built is kind of a smart workflow coming out of this. So whenever an alert comes up, and you as to kind of look at it, okay, nice idea, but doesn't really work for us. Yeah, you can either delete it, you can change the threshold. Maybe our ambition to have 80% in New York next day is a bit too much. Yeah, so you can lower the threshold so the alert doesn't go off. Or you can act on it and mute it. Hey, I don't want to look at this for the next week, and then kind of get back to it. So these are all interactions we built into this workflow that allows you to customize this. So obviously, the first weeks you will get a lot of alerts that may or may not be relevant for you. But after kind of working with the system, you really can fine tune it. And the AI also gets a better idea what you care about as a customer. So obviously, we're learning across and doing the summarization. But it will get smarter every day. The more you can work with the system. And I think that's why we don't see this as a report that you can get in your email and then do whatever. We see this as kind of really the control tower, so to say, of the future, where you interact with the data right away. You give the model feedback, you learn, and you get things done. And getting things done is like, okay, working with the carrier, reallocating volumes from one carrier in one region to another, kind of calling a warehouse and kind of asking them why is this metric dropped? So there's a lot of things you can do, or you basically understand where the issues are. And I think that will transform a lot of how you spend your time in the operations management. So that's the second pillar on that we looked at. So the third thing is obviously, once you know something is wrong, you need to be able to deep dive. You need to really be able to look into the details, understand how you can fix things. And I think that's where we have out-of-the-box BI. I'm sure everyone has a BI system, but you spend most of the time figuring out how do you get all the data in there. And basically do all pre-calculation, what does this event mean for the order? So we have done this as out of the box because e-commerce is a very clear industry on how it works. So literally we have the business logic built in. So you can just go in and use it. So you don't have to worry about all the data pipelines and how it's available. You can set this up. You don't need the data analyst to support you. So it makes life a lot easier. And everything is deeply integrated with the alerting and the metrics. So you don't have to worry about kind of translating what you just seen in the alert kind of into the detailed analysis. So with those things coming together, I think you get to a very, very different level, kind of how you can optimize your operations. So really using kind of Copilot functionality to really make things better. And I think this is not just operations. This is not just a carrier delivery or your warehouse. This is also the open rates of your notifications, the click-through rates of what is out there. Kind of what's your conversion rate at checkout? What's your return percentage for this particular category? All of these metrics are in the system, and you can put your alerting on top, so you know what's going on and where you need to act. So I think this gives you a very powerful tool set to go to a different level in the way you handle your post-purchase.
Absolutely. I mean, based on these enhancements that you're discussing industry-wide, what can we expect and how can we prepare ourselves for the future?
So what we have seen, kind of working with customers across the globe, kind of observing kind of where everyone starts. So over the last 10 years, you guys have been building your business, and what happens? Problems pop up, and you find a solution. So whenever you have a use case, usually kick off an RFP process. You let like 2-3 vendors come up, make their proposals. You pick one. You implement it. So a lot of our customers end up, hey, we have like 10, 15 different service providers in different locations, different countries, different kind of parts of the business, from post-purchase over kind of the expectation setting, kind of label creation, manifesting, returns, kind of customer feedback collection. So there's a lot of applications out there that you have, like let's say an internal team that stitches it together to make sure it works. And the moment something changes, you'll literally probably kick off the next RFP process to fix things. So what this essentially has as a result is a kind of, it is a very grown construct of a technology stack over time that has a lot of kind of issues with silos that you have created that will holding you back. So what we are seeing as we are moving to a kind of an age where AI and those capabilities can transform the way you're working, is you have to really rethink the approach of doing things. So the way we look at it, kind of what's really driving the kind of negative side of this is for you is you have a lot of data silos. So if you have 10 different vendors in your delivery experience technology stack, you have 10 places where your data are that are not linked. So you can't have synergies. It's very painful to run analysis across all these kind of topics. You can't really make programmatic decisions because, yes, you can pull, as a human operator, you pull all the data together and you take a decision, but you want this decision to be probably taken on a more granular level automatically, and that's not possible if the data is dispersed across multiple systems. The second one is you have to maintain the whole thing. So you have so many different points of failure. If you have all these applications pushing data involved in the stack, if one breaks or changes something, that has a lot of repercussions across. So you have many points of failure. You need a big team to maintain it. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. And if you want to fix something or something goes wrong, you may not be in control on or any particular vendor in control of resolving everything. So everything will rely on you. And the last thing, I think that's become also kind of even more important, data security. Yeah, so all your data sits with 15 different parties, and it's very difficult to kind of, there's always something can go wrong, and therefore I think being able to have kind of less exposure that way is probably something to look into for the future of this. So if we're looking at it, what you want and what probably the future is going to look like is a kind of a vertical integrated platform where we have single data layer, where all the information is kept. You have a single end-to-end perspective on the customer, where you can see from the expectation setting at the checkout, the customer experience during the post-purchase, kind of what they're experiencing during returns process, having that in one particular data layer, and being able to, first of all, see everything, analyze it, make sure it's consistent, and build kind of more capabilities over time. And I think that essentially lets you be different as a business. You will be smarter, you take better decisions because you have more data available that are linked and correlated. You will be faster because there's data available right away without kind of the manual processes. And you're more likely to be future-proof in what else is coming in terms of data applications in the future. So that's where also we see ourselves as Parcel Perform. We're technically a platform service provider, a SaaS solution, but we see ourselves more kind of as a partner. So you should look at, if you want to prepare for that kind of future, you should look at kind of not buying software, but finding the right partner that gets you there. So our principles are, first of all, we look at it end to end. We don't want to just kind of do piecemeal and kind of leave it to you to plug it together. We service you from kind of checkouts over post-purchase until returns. We focus on the data foundation. So everything that's a kind of the foundation, kind of all the services, all the automation, the way you want to run your post-purchase is based on the best data. If you have a weak foundation, you can't build a strong house on top of it. So I think having the data, having a single kind of standardized data layer on the back of it is super, super important. Then being future-proof, kind of constantly innovating together with our customers. There's so much happening on data side. Kind of every month, kind of there's new capabilities out there. So you need somebody who's putting the emphasis on it, making sure you have access to these technology advancements over time. And I think that's one of the things we put a lot of attention to. Time to value. You want to have a partner that has the same urgency than you guys have on managing your your business. And lastly, we operate globally. So wherever you're going, we're going to be there. We have 1,100 carriers. So we don't want to hold you back when it comes to geographical expansion, whatever partners you work with. I think that's one of the key elements where we see ourselves stand out. So and I think that's where kind of in this future, where a lot more data capabilities, the whole delivery experience process is more interdependent. I think you also need to think about it differently, the way you build your technology stack and basically pick the right vendors to support you.
Captivating. Very, very wonderful presentation. Maybe we take some questions from the audience at this point?
Sure.
All right. Could we get a microphone to anybody who has any questions for Arne over here? Anybody in the audience like to ask a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, great presentation. Richard Morden from Schneider Electric. Can you elaborate a little bit with the recruiting roles, upskilling now with AI, what you're seeing, and when you're trying to attract talent, what type of roles and how is that different than maybe some of the roles you had with cloud and big data 5 years ago?
So I personally don't believe that recruiting is going to fix kind of the skill gap on AI, because I think, first of all, there are not that many kind of experts out there. Everyone is kind of learning because I think the innovation happened. So I think what we're looking at, and this is what we drive into our team, is exposure. So and kind of setting the right incentives. So giving them the tools at their hand, kind of which can be expensive. Kind of say all these co-pilots, Gemini, kind of workflows, etc. They're expensive, but I think if you put them in the hands of the teams, I think you get a lot of new ideas because you can't recruit yourself out of this kind of trend. So you have to find a way to bring your team along. And then basically set the right incentives. So literally what we said is on the development side. So we have a very sizable tech team that's saying, hey, we're now doing a kind of a part of our development facilitated by AI tools. So accepting that it may take longer the first or 2 times or 3 times they're using it. But I think that helps us to learn as an organization how to adopt those technologies. Just a very technical example to basically if you develop a kind of a mock-up that you have created, AI does that, but I think you learn how to do different mock-ups so the AI can deal with it better. So there's a lot of processes and way you do things you need to change to make it ready for AI. But I think you can hire a person who knows it and then kind of everything is fine. I think every organization has to go through this learning process. And I think that's where you can set the right incentive, the right tool exposure, and emphasize, hey, kind of how cool it is if they had successes with it.
Right there.
Hi there. I had one question on the co-pilot and the real-time monitoring and like the alerting. But how do you think about going that additional step with clients to actually like trigger like an automated lever or reaction versus just surfacing like the defects?
So that's obviously then the next level to say, hey, okay, we're seeing this defect kind of in whatever process that you're operating. How do you can automate this? So we can support that. So we have the automated triggers. So I think we have webhooks, and every webhook can be linked to kind of a process automation flow. I'm not sure what you're using. A lot of that is, however, external. So it's okay, and the external party might not be ready for that kind of feedback. So Let's imagine you're working with a carrier and you're like monitoring their depots and their depot performance. And every day you call, hey, these are the 3 depots that were subpar yesterday. I don't think they are ready for this yet. So I think our platform supports it. But I think we will have to look at each of the processes to also find the right partner ecosystem that can kind of deal with this kind of granular management, because a lot of the carriers are not used to getting these calls. Yeah, so customers will notice that their hub in New York is not performing weeks after kind of it actually happened. So I think we're seeing a lot of customers kind of annoying the hell out of these carriers, kind of by just having a lot more data. So which also makes us sometimes a little less popular with those partners. But nevertheless, I think that's essentially where kind of big customers also need to educate the industry, the partner they work with. Hey, we want this. Yeah. So if you're a big merchant, I think the carriers will go an extra mile to accommodate this kind of impact, and that will help to move the industry forward. Because when I started looking into e-commerce logistics, I think 15 years back, the way the service works isn't very different from the way it is nowadays. So I think there will be an important part of the evolution I think the industry has to go through by having to answer these kind of granular management and granular expectation from the merchant and ultimately the end customers to deliver better service. And I think we want to be the facilitator. But yes, as long as you hold the contract with the carriers, I think you need to be the one making the call. But if they're starting to have automatic interfaces, logging tickets, kind of escalations, kind of compensation processes, then we can help to automate that part. But I don't think the industry is ready for it yet. But I think that's probably something we're going to see over the next 2-3 years, where more and more of these escalations actually go on an automated loop.
Thank you.
Hey, hi everyone. Sorry. Is there a conversion rate metric? Like there are some sites that have decided to show the promised delivery date versus some others that decided not to show the promised delivery date. Is there like a conversion rate metric that favors one versus the other one?
So every product is different. So what we have seen is also how aggressive do you want to be? So if you're selling a commodity that can be bought in 15 other places, the price and the EDD matters. So I think I had a conversation with one of the kind of the merchants here saying they sell white T-shirts. So with white T-shirts, you compete against Amazon and Walmart and every other merchant out there. So the price needs to be right. And the EDD needs to be right. If you're like 2 days slower than everyone else, you're not going to get much business. So if you're selling very bespoke inventory, like crafty elements that can only be bought in one, you probably want to play it safer. Or you may not even have to kind of put the EDD on there. So I think we usually look at it from a metric. It's how competitive is this value proposition? How many other places are there that they can buy it from? And we have seen merchants that kind of have a very broad inventory portfolio, where they say half of our products are super competitive, the other half isn't. So, and it's okay to have different EDD logics for those products. So where you compete against the Amazons of the world, you better have your act together, you have to be fast, you have to be cheap. If you don't, you have a little bit more leeway. And I think that's where we also, when we deploy this kind of solution, we also kind of look at measuring it. So we look at the impact of conversion. We do A/B testing. And the results for A/B testing might not be the same for every product category. So that's why I think we're also kind of building that into our product to really understand what are the kind of trade-offs. Because obviously, if you're too aggressive, the probability you're late is higher. But you basically need to trade off. Hey, we have 5% more conversion, but also 5% more calls. But maybe that's okay, because we just made a whole lot more money upfront. So, but that trade-off is important.
Yeah, it makes all sense. We did the A/B testing, and I was surprised to see that there was no more attracted customers. But yeah, makes all sense. Thank you.
All right.
Any other questions from the audience? If not, we want to thank Arne for this wonderful presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.